When a heartbroken millionaire opened his door, he never expected to meet a starving little girl. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My hands shook as I opened the door, the weight of my torn heart heavy on my chest. There she stood, a ragged silhouette against the bright light outside, her tiny body trembling like a leaf in a storm. Her big, trembling eyes seemed to hold the weight of the world, desperate, pleading. I had been wallowing in my own misery, haunted by the memories of my failures. The echoes of laughter that had filled my grand house now fell silent. I didn't expect to see a ghost of innocence standing on my doorstep, but there she was, a living contradiction to my loneliness. Her clothes hung on her frail frame like tattered flags of surrender, and I could smell the faint stench of hunger clinging to her. "Please, I'm so hungry," she whispered, voice barely rising above the whispering wind. Each word seemed to echo in the cavernous emptiness of my heart. A lump formed in my throat, painful and heavy, as I watched her bare feet sink into the cracked pavement beneath her. I wanted to reach out, to take her in my arms, but fear gripped me like a vice. I glanced back into my opulent home, the cold marble floors, the golden accents, the lavish artwork. A prison of my own making. How could I let this girl in? What did it mean for my carefully crafted facade? But a flicker of hope sparked in the pit of my stomach. "Do you have a name?" I finally managed, my voice trembling like my hands. She looked up at me, startled, as if the question hadn't even occurred to her. "Lila," she breathed out, a shiver dancing through her words. The sound of that name lingered in the air like a haunting melody, pulling at the hidden chambers of my heart. With each passing heartbeat, I could feel the walls I'd built around myself starting to fray. She needed me, and I was terrified. Damn, why mind raced. What could I do? I felt sudden pressure, the weight of my wealth, my loneliness, crashing against my resolve. As I stood there, the world around us faded, and for a moment, it was just me and Lila, like a painting left untouched by brushstrokes. The uncertainty loomed large, cloaked in silence. And then, just as I opened my mouth to invite her in, a shadow flashed in the corner of my eye. A man, sturdy and frowning, lingered at the edge of my property. Why was he watching us? My heart raced in my chest as fear washed over me. "Who are you?" My voice came out sharp, cutting through the thick tension. The man shifted, appearing as an ominous figure, a silent guardian with secrets etched on his brow. Lila flinched at my words, her wide eyes darting between us, her vulnerability hanging in the air like a fragile thread. Could I trust him? Could I trust myself? The questions rolled over me like a tsunami. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood frozen, the door still ajar, feeling the warm summer breeze that washed over us suddenly turn icy. Lila's body tensed beside me, and I sensed the fear radiating off her small frame. The man's figure loomed larger as he approached, his gait steady but disconcerting. "I'm just looking out for folks like her," he said, his voice deep and soothing, rich like aged whiskey. But my instincts screamed at me, caution was necessary when dealing with unknown intentions disguised as kindness. "Who are you?" I demanded again, my voice wavering between suspicion and urgency. Inside me, conflict brewed, the shattered pieces of my soul battling the instinct to help this child. Lila clung to my leg as if I were her anchor in a turbulent sea. The moment felt suspended, time compressing around us as we waited for the man to respond. "That I am Sam," he finally replied, his brow furrowing with what appeared to be concern rather than hostility. "Just making sure she's safe." He hesitated, scanning the remote surroundings as if wary of invisible dangers. "There are people out here who would take advantage of someone like her." You might think you're helping, but what? I asked, the edge in my voice sharper than I intended. I hated the way fear seeped into every corner of my mind. I couldn't afford to put Lila in danger, nor could I let my own insecurities dictate my actions. Just be careful, he warned, his eyes softening as they flicked to Lila. She's been through a lot. A lightning bolt of empathy struck me, unwelcome yet powerful, as I remembered my own losses. The suffocating loneliness I had tried to drown out crept back into the crevices of my heart, an unwelcome guest. Who was I to judge any pain but my own? But the question hung uncomfortably, its answer stealing my breath. I glanced down at Lila, whose small hand gripped my leg tighter. Her innocence was woven into the fabric of her a shimmering thread that connected with my own desolate heart. I can take care of her, I promise, I murmured, my voice barely a whisper, but Sam's unyielding gaze met mine. Sometimes, it's not just about what you can give. It's also about what she needs, he replied, stepping closer, allowing Lila to slip slightly from view behind me. The sincerity in his voice softened my defenses. You don't know her story, and there's a darkness that follows children when they are left to fend for themselves. I shook my head, a deluge of emotions threatening to drown me. Was I ready to bear the weight of another's hurt? I barely had the strength to carry my own pain. But Lila's presence called to a part of me long buried a flicker of warmth struggling against the coldness I had wrapped around myself. What happened to her? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Sam sighed, glancing back toward the street, a shadow clouding his face. She was in foster care, moved from one home to another, never quite fitting in. They don't always care, you know. Sometimes it's just about the paychecks. She ran away from the last place when they didn't give her enough to eat. She may be small, but Lila's stronger than you think. Please, I'm not a bad person. Lila's voice broke, each word an echo of desperation. My heart cracked a little more, the walls I had built around my heart trembling under the weight of her plea. I wanted to shield her from everything: this man, my own darkness, the world beyond these walls. But could I? I took a deep breath, fighting against the swell of my own doubts. I'll help you, I said, the resolution solidifying as my gaze locked with Lila's eyes. And in that moment, a surge of warmth spread through me, a glimmer of hope. The street seemed to hold its breath with us, and Sam nodded. Just remember, you can't save her alone. This world is cruel, and sometimes it helps to lean on others. And just as those words hung heavily in the air, a soft sound broke the stillness: a distant siren, wailing in antisymmetry to our fragile moment. My heart sank at the realization of everything outside those walls that we couldn't control. Then Sam stepped back, a fleeting shadow falling over his face. I have to go, he said quietly, the urgency not lost on me. But I'll be around if you need me. Just know that you're not alone in this. Before I could challenge him further, he turned and walked away, leaving me with a thought heavy enough to anchor me. Alone again with Lila, stood on the precipice of my old life and this new, fragile connection filled with uncertainty. I knelt down and touched her cheek, brushing a few strands of matted hair behind her ear. You're going to be okay, I whispered, my voice cracking as I said it. But even as I spoke, something gnawed at me deep within. How could I be sure? What if saving her digs up wounds I thought long since buried? And then I heard it, the sound of footsteps, a group of shadowed figures approaching swiftly from the street ahead. My heart raced, and I felt the air thicken with tension once again. I could barely breathe as dread crept in. It was a haunting reminder that safety could vanish in an instant. As they approached, I realized with chilling clarity, there was no escaping the storm that was quickly gathering around us. Lila, inside! I shouted, adrenaline surging through me as I motioned for her to run before I knew who was coming for us. But as I turned back to face the oncoming threat, my heart sank deeper at the terrible thought that raced through my mind: what if those figures knew her? What if they were the ghosts of her past, here to drag her back into the life she was desperately trying to flee? I barely had time to process my fear before the figures coalesced, cutting through the dim light of dusk like ceaseless shadows. My pulse thundered, drowning out any rational thought. Lila had already darted inside, but the eerie echo of her small footsteps reverberated in my ears like an ominous omen. Wait. A voice called from the lead figure, halting my impulse to confront the threatening shape. It was a woman, her features sharp and drawn, yet strangely familiar. As she stepped closer, a glimmer of recognition flickered in my mind. It was Chloe, the social worker who had handled my case years ago, a stark reminder of my own tumultuous history. The air thickened as tension crackled between us. "I didn't expect to find you here," I managed, my voice struggling to sound composed when all I felt was chaos. "Yeah, well, life has a way of throwing curveballs," she replied, her eyes scanning the space behind me where Lila had disappeared. "I was just in the neighborhood, and I heard something about a little girl running away. We're worried about her." The accusation in her tone stung, brittle like a frost-laden branch ready to snap. I swallowed hard, grappling with emotions that swirled like an unrelenting tide. "She's safe. She's with me," I insisted, surprising myself with the fierce protectiveness woven into my words. Chloe stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You don't know what you're getting into. Kids like her." She paused, a shadow passing over her eyes. "They attract trouble. You remember what happened when you tried to save me from my demons?" Those dark memories clawed at the edges of my mind, but I couldn't give in to that despair now. Lila's face, etched with fear yet glimmering with hope, surged in my consciousness. "I can't let anyone hurt her, Chloe," I said, my voice steady but echoing the internal storm rising within me, a testament against my own past failures. Chloe's expression softened, revealing a flicker of empathy. "You're not that same person anymore. But this is different. Some children come with burdens far greater than you imagine." Just then, Lila peeked cautiously around the doorframe, her eyes wide and vulnerable, tethered to me like a lifeline amidst raging waters. "What's going on?" she whispered, a tremor in her voice that made my heart writhe with a mix of protectiveness and fear. "Stay inside, sweetheart," I called back gently, even as Chloe's words gnawed at my resolve. I turned back to the social worker, grappling with my instincts. I wanted to shield Lila from the world that had done her wrong, but every protective instinct clashed against the turmoil of the truth. Chloe stepped forward, softer now, shaking her head in disbelief. "You want to save her, but are you ready to handle the weight of her past? She's not just some charity cassette, she's a person with wounds deeper than the ocean that I know," I said, the admission cutting through the hardened shell I had encased around my heart. "But I can't just turn my back on her, not now. She needs someone to believe in her." And as I uttered those words, I felt a stirring deep within me, a spark of resolve igniting amidst flickering embers of vulnerability. My emotional cage was trembling, ready to shatter, and just then I caught sight of Lila's small form silhouetted in the threshold, her wide brown eyes staring at us, absorbing everything. Chloe sighed, her features softening as she turned her attention to Lila. "Sweetheart, we're just looking out for you. You've been through so much. Can you come here for a moment?" Lila hesitated, small as a leaf caught in the wind. The decision weighed heavy, her instinct to flee or trust. But I could see she was searching for the same thing I was, a glimmer of hope amidst the shadowed uncertainties enveloping our lives. When Lila stepped forward, uncertain yet resolute, the moment felt electric, the air thick with unspoken promises and looming fears tethering us together. Just as Lila took another step, rattling the fragile line between flight and fight, the atmosphere shifted entirely, pulling in more darkness. The distant hum of laughter morphed into jeers that drew closer down the street. My stomach twisted. I recognized that laughter, a mockery echoing around the corners of my own frightful past. That I blocked the doorway instinctively, shielding Lila behind me. "This isn't over," I muttered, the confrontation instinctively rising within me like an angry tide. A group of teenagers emerged from the shadows, their faces alight with mischief. One of them, a tall boy with emerald green eyes, spotted Lila, and his expression morphed into something dark, recognition mixed with ridicule slicing through my rising fury. "There she is," he called out, an ugly grin plastered across his face, the echo taunting as my heart sank further into the mire of helplessness. "Thought you could run away? You'll never be free from us. Suddenly, the weight of the darkness that clung to my old life wrapped around me like an unbearable cloak. The fear I'd long buried surfaced with acrid clarity. I was facing the very demons I thought I had escaped. Panic was a fierce current trying to pull me under. "Run, Lila!" I shouted, my voice laced with urgency. But as I turned, ready to shield her and face whatever storm was coming, I suddenly realized the depth of my own words. I wouldn't just be fighting for her, I would be battling my own heart. The world spun in stark monochrome, suffocating hope and pitting my past against the fragile boundaries of this moment. And as the familiar faces closed in around us, I was caught between the horror of what I couldn't flee and the flicker of hope that still glowed within Lilith's darkened eyes. Our paths were entwined now, and the question loomed larger than ever: would love prevail, or would the weight of despair push us back into the shadows we were desperate to escape? I could almost hear the echoes of my own childhood mingling with the looming threats of the present. Each taunt from the teenagers sliced through the air like a blade, intensifying the storm of emotions swirling within me. I had fought hard to rewrite my story. Now, it felt as if I was being dragged back into the very page I had desperately tried to turn. "Leave her alone." The words burst from my mouth, raw and desperate. I hadn't planned to confront them, not like this, but the sight of Lila's trembling reflection in my periphery fueled an urgency I couldn't ignore. The group halted, their confidence faltering only for a moment. The boy with emerald eyes stepped forward, amusement flashing across his face. "Is this your new mommy, Lila? You'd better run back before she gets herself hurt. No one can save you now." Each taunt was a reminder of my past, a yoke of shame and sorrow that dragged me down. I was terrified, but I had sworn to protect Lila, and that resolve pushed me to take a step closer to the threshold. "Stand behind me," I ordered Lila, my body acting instinctively as a barrier against the approaching storm. I felt her small frame press against my back, and despite the risk, warmth spread through me. I was not alone in this fight. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Just bring her with us," said another boy, this one older, leaning on a lamppost with an air of casual authority. "What good is it to have her with a loser like you? Walk away," I hissed, the words laced with the venom of my fears. I could feel Chloe's eyes on my back, the tension in her posture a silent plea for reason, but nothing registered except the need to shield Lila from their verbal daggers. Then, unexpectedly, something shifted. A soft voice emerged from the doorway. "Stop it." Lila spoke, her words unexpected but powerful. It felt as if time froze momentarily. She was no longer the scared little girl hiding behind me. Their jeers faltered, confusion rippling through the group. "What did you say?" The green-eyed boy mocked, but there was curiosity woven into his tone, a flicker of surprise at the unexpected defiance radiating from her small figure. I said stop. "I'm not going back," Lila declared, tears spilling down her cheeks but her voice steady. "You can't just bully me anymore. I'm not afraid of you." A hushed silence enveloped us for a moment, a fragile truce hanging between breaths. I felt a rush of pride swelling within me. This little girl, with all her vulnerabilities, was standing her ground. And although my heart ached for her innocence, I recognized a spark within her, a flicker of strength we both desperately needed. But just before I could process what had happened, the moment shattered. Lila felt me tense, the anxiety slipping through my veins, and her bravado melted into uncertainty. The boy laughed harshly, a hollow sound that shattered the spell of bravery she had cast. "You think you can just go on with your sweet little life? You have no idea what you're asking for." Before I could react, the edge of the group pulled back, regrouping behind the boy. The emerald-eyed adolescent took another step, his smirk returning. Perhaps he was hoping to rattle us further, but something shifted in me. The bravado was turning back into fear, and I needed to reclaim my voice, my power. "Lila," I said gently, my voice low, but firm. "You're stronger than you know. Just stand with me." Chloe chimed in, her authority cutting through the rising aggression. "You shouldn't be here. This isn't your business," she called to the teenagers, her eyes narrowing. "You need to leave now. This is about her, not you." The moment hung in the air, pulsating with the weight of unsaid things. I could see doubt creeping into their eyes, but the boy remained stubborn, his expression shifting between defiance and insecurity. Maybe we will. But remember, he sneered, you can't run forever, Lila. We'll always find you. The group turned and walked away, fading into the distance, their laughter dissolving like smoke in the wind. As the shadow of their presence lifted, the tightness in my chest began to loosen, but it was quickly replaced with a new fear. What did their threats mean for us? I turned to Lila, hoping to find a spark of reassurance in her eyes, but she was looking down, her small hands trembling. She felt the burden of their threat, the weight of those words settling around her spirit like a heavy shroud. My heart sank. How could I help her carry that? I knelt down to her level, tilting her chin up gently, forcing her to meet my gaze. You are brave, Lila. You were so incredibly brave out there, but what if they come back? She whispered, vulnerability cracking through the strength she had just displayed. A fragile glass facade threatened by the world's harsh edges. They might, I admitted, my heart heavy. But we won't face them alone. We'll find ways to protect each other. Chloe stepped forward, her presence a mix of authority and compassion. I can help you both, you know. We can come up with a plan, resources you didn't have before. You're not in this alone, all right. But as comforting as Chloe's proposal sounded, a nagging question nagged at Muhat. If it wasn't enough, Lila bit her lip, her brow furrowing as she took in our words. I felt her resolve fading, the weight of uncertainty pressing against her small form. What if no one believes us? At that moment, I felt the foundations of my promise begin to crack under the strain of reality. It felt like we were precariously perched on a precipice, teetering on the edge of a truth that could yank the ground out from under us at any moment, and just as I opened my mouth to reassure her, seeking the courage I desperately clung to, a sharp sound erupted from around the street corner, a voice bellowing, followed by the unmistakable roar of an engine. My heart dropped as I turned to see a figure emerging into the dim light of the evening. That it was a familiar silhouette, one that could only belong to someone I had thought was long gone. Lila. There you are. A voice called, and my blood ran cold at the sight of a man I could never forget, the very definition of chaos from my own past. The unresolved conflict within me ignited anew, battling against the fragile hope I had so desperately held on to. The air crackled with tension, and my heart raced as I prepared for the inevitable clash that would follow. The moment I laid eyes on him, a jumble of emotions twisted within me: fear, anger, and dismay. He stood just a few feet away, a shadow from my past I had hoped would remain buried beneath layers of time, yet here he was, his presence shrouded in an unsettling familiarity. The man who had taught me everything about heartbreak was now standing before me, his voice a grotesque echo of memories I had fought so hard to forget. Lila. He exclaimed again, urgency lacing his tone. His gaze flickered between her and me, an unreadable expression warping his features. Thank Christ you're safe. Absurdity clawed at the edges of my mind. Safe. Did he even know what that word meant? For every moment of vulnerability I had endured at his hands and the helplessness he had left me with, there he stood, the same man who had shattered my world. I felt powerless, my heart racing as a tidal wave of emotion washed over me. Would Lila even understand what was at stake? I turned to her, uncertainty playing in her eyes as she clung to my side, her small body quaking with anxiety. This was not just a reunion, this was a seismic shift in the already fragile foundation we were rebuilding together. Lila, stay behind me, I whispered fiercely, hoping to shield her from this apparition of chaos. Are you okay? He asked, shifting closer, disregarding my attempt to protect her. The concern in his voice made my stomach churn, evoking memories of deceit wrapped in a guise of affection. I've been looking everywhere for you, don't you dare come any closer. I shouted, my voice breaking the tenuous air between us. Rage surged through me, rising like smoke from a burning building. I wanted to push him away, to shove the darkness of my past back into the void it belonged to. You've done enough, his expression faltered, confusion mixing with acknowledgement. But he didn't back down. I'm not here to hurt you. I swear it. I made mistakes, he stammered, the tremor in his voice betraying his confidence. Like leaving me? I spat, venom leaking from my words. Is that what you call a mistake? You think you can just waltz back into our lives as if nothing happened? Lila whimpered quietly, her fingers curled tightly around my arm, and I could feel the tremors beneath her skin. The life I had managed to build for her felt like it was unraveling at the seams, and for the first time, I wished for the strength to curl up and hide away from it all. This wasn't just my battle anymore. In its deepest throes, it threatened to engulf Lila too. That I am sorry. I truly am, he whispered, the desperation lacing his words resonating within me. But it wasn't enough, nothing would bring back those years of loss, the scars etched deep in my soul. Do you even understand what sorry means? I challenged him, my heart thudding rhythmically within my chest. I could feel the heat of disappointment betraying my composure, but I couldn't let him see how deeply he affected me. It doesn't erase the damage you've done. You have no right to be here. His eyes flickered with something between guilt and determination. Let me help you. Let me be part of your lives again. Please, you don't understand what I've been through. Since he hesitated, searching for the right words, but his voice trembled, breaking under the weight of his emotions. Since you left us? I cut in, my voice dangerously low. Since you shattered our lives. You think you can just bring your turmoil into our world and fix everything with hollow apologies? Lila, so quiet and conflicted, tugged at my arm, her soft voice rising above the din of our confrontation. Is he really bad? I could hear the quiet curiosity mingling with her fear. In her eyes, I saw her longing for a father figure, her need for connection battling against the shadows cast by our turbulent past. No. He's not, he rushed to say, his voice laced with sincerity. I know I messed up. But I've changed. I want to make it right. It's not that easy, I countered, closing my eyes momentarily, willing myself to find the words that would reassure both of us. Being there in a moment doesn't erase the empty spaces left behind. A flicker of panic played across Lila's features. I could feel her teetering unsurely between us. Maybe we can give him a chance, she suggested, a note of hope threading through her vulnerability. What if he's really trying to be better? No, Lila, I exclaimed, the words spilling from my lips before I could contain it. You don't understand the depths of his darkness, but you always tell me to believe in people, to give them the chance they deserve, she countered, her fresh perspective striking me like a bolt of lightning. The innocence of her reasoning felt like a piercing light, cutting through the shadows of my protective instincts. Lila, this is different, I said softly, grappling with the internal war raging inside me. Yet I couldn't quite refute her words, all the lessons I had imparted crumbling under her unwavering gaze. The man who stood before me wore a mask of uncertainty that slowly began to crack, the veneer of bravado slipping away. Just give me a chance to show you I've changed, that I'm no longer that person you knew, he pleaded, desperation etching lines across his face, but hope tangled with fear in my chest. What if he was what he claimed? What if he wasn't? The precarious tightrope I walked had just become infinitely more treacherous. What do I have to lose? Lila asked quietly, and the tremor in her voice sent a chill racing down my spine. Maybe what you see in him is something you can learn from. Maybe he can teach you how to trust again. In that moment of breathless uncertainty, I felt the ground beneath me shift, the boundaries of my resolve splintering as Lila dared to reach out for a connection while I shielded her from my own past. I had always vowed to protect her. Instead, she was extending a hand toward the very chaos I feared. Before I could respond, a rustling from the shadows caught my attention. The palpable tension in the air thickened with the sense of unseen eyes watching our exchange, a creep of dread crawling up my spine. The boy with emerald eyes reappeared at the edge of my peripheral vision, his sneer splitting the crisp evening air, closely followed by his equally menacing posse. My heart lurched. Now it became clear, the past was not done with us yet, not by a long shot. Looks like you found some new friends, Lila, he mocked, his voice slicing through the tense atmosphere like a knife. I felt Lila's hand grip mine tightly, fear flooding her small frame once more. I'm not afraid of you, she shouted, the defiance echoing from before resurfacing, yet the trembling in her voice betrayed her. With my heart lying bare in the open like a trap laid for prey, I realized the truth. turmoil lingered at every turn, and I had no idea if we would be able to navigate through it unscathed this time around. As the group closed in, I felt the weight of my choices pressing heavy upon me once again. The past, a relentless specter, would never truly let us go. All I could do was stand tall beside Lila, my resolve hardening even as my heart quaked at the uncertainty ahead. What had once been a hesitant flame of hope flickered uncertainly in the dangerous winds of our reality. The confrontation awaited us, a moment that would forever weave the strands of our fates together in ways I could only begin to fathom. The echo of Lila's defiance hung palpably in the air, a fragile gust of courage that threatened to shatter under the shadow of approaching chaos. I steadied myself, gripping her hand fiercely, as if my very presence could shield her from the turmoil threatening to engulf us both. Each heartbeat reverberated in my chest like the tolling of a bell, warning of impending danger that loomed just beyond our grasp. The boy with emerald eyes stepped further into the light, flanked by his partners in mischief, a cruel grin stretched across his face. My heart plummeted at the realization that my worst fears had manifested in the flesh. "Look who we have here," he sneered, eyes darting between Lila and me. "The little hero and her overprotective shadow. Leave us alone, Tyler." I snapped, my pulse pounding in my ears like a drum, threatening to drown out the logical whispers that urged restraint. "Why should I? You're the one who has been hiding her away from the world." His voice dripped with condescension. "Honestly, do you think playing house is going to make her forget where she comes from?" In that moment, Tyler reveled in the wicked flames of my past, igniting them like kindling. I could feel the weight of his words pushing down on my chest, threatening to suffocate me with memories I fought hard to bury. Each taunt reminded me of every late-night call from that one number I had put on block, the way despair dripped into the silence, merging with guilt and regret. "Tyrant," I whispered, barely loud enough for anyone but myself to hear. And yet, from Lila's side, I could feel her resolve falter, the chink in my armor widening as the storm bore down on us. That what you want for her? To know what it's like to live in fear? Tyler pressed on, eyes alight with malicious glee. "You think you can be her savior? Look at yourself. You're just as broken as he is." He gestured toward Lila's father, still hovering at the fringes, a wilted sepulchre of his past mistakes, but a small voice trembled from beside me, tugging at the seams of my heart. "You don't know him," Lila said, defiance igniting in her eyes. "Maybe he's not perfect, but neither are you, Tyler." The group laughed derisively, a chorus of mockery that crashed against the fragile barriers we had attempted to erect. "You think you can win this round against us? Just look at who you're standing with." Tyler provoked, stepping closer to Lila as if attempting to siphon her light into his dark ambition. "Don't get too comfortable," I warned, pulling her behind me instinctively. My voice deepened, fueled by enkindled anger, the flame flickering boldly against the shadows cast by Tyler's threats. "Still playing protector, are we?" he taunted, eyes narrowing in on me. "You know you can't keep her under your wing forever. Sooner or later, she'll realize how delusional you are. You can't be her mother and her father. You can't control what she wants." Each word sliced through me with precision. Doubt seeped into the cracks of my resolve like water through stone. Even as I stood my ground, a tempest thundered in my chest, battling between fear and the hope Lila felt toward her father. I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of longing battling against the brightness of her spirit. "That we have each other. That's what really matters," I said, steeling my voice against the jagged edges threatening to fracture it. But as I spoke, I could feel the rippling tide of unease within me, that old familiar feeling of being adrift in a sea with no shore in sight. Lila squeezed my hand with earnestness, bravery bubbling within her. "You're wrong, Tyler. It's not about being perfect. It's about trying, and wanting to be better." Around us, the laughter died down, uncertainty creeping into their faces like fog rolling in from the ocean. For the briefest moment, it felt like we had the upper hand. A sliver of light pierced the darkness, illuminating our connection, the bond we had forged through shared struggle. But before I could savor that victory, the world around us seemed to shift abruptly. A low rumble reverberated through the ground, and even the air felt charged with tension. I caught sight of Lila's father, uncertainty flickering in his eyes, the weight of our confrontation hanging heavy. "Please," he said softly, its sincerity a stark contrast to the surrounding chaos. "Just give me a moment to explain. I am not the person you remember that I can't trust what you say," I shot back, my voice a whiplash dividing the profound silence settling upon us. "You've already shattered that trust into pieces." Tyler seized this sudden moment of distraction. "Let's make it interesting then," he said, a sly smile creeping across his face. "A little challenge to spice up the reunion? How about a game of sorts? If you win, we'll leave you alone. But if you lose, well, you can only guess what happens next." A chill crept down my spine. His suggestion felt like a dare wrapped in malice, but as Lilith's eyes met mine, unwavering and full of an innocent defiance, I found it difficult to swallow my despair. What kind of monster would play a game with lives hanging in the balance? "Don't you dare listen to him," I snapped, but a part of me, a dark, stark part, was afraid of what would unfold if I declined. Tyler leaned closer, his breath hot and thick. "What's the matter? Scared of a challenge? Don't you want to protect her?" Desperation gnawed at me, the pulse of time fading in and out, marking each heartbeat with uncertainty. I wanted to shield Lila from this madness. Yet I could feel the walls closing in on us, forcing my resolve to fray at the edges as uncertainty dripped into the cracks. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth, taking a step forward, unwilling to back down from this challenge. Lila tugged on my arm, wide-eyed in protest, but I shook my head gently. I needed to show her that there was strength to be found in moments like these, strength to stand our ground even with treacherous stakes looming before us. The group around Tyler erupted into applause, his smug satisfaction evident. "I knew you'd come around. Let's see how brave you really are." And as I faced off against the embodiment of my fear, a question flickered to life in the shadows of my mind: would this moment be the catalyst for growth, or would it plunge us into the depths of darkness once more? The choice would determine our Fatisa final gambit in a game that needed to be played carefully, but as we prepared to engage in this harrowing contest, a gnawing dread intertwined with an undeniable hope. Somehow, one way or another, we were bound to confront the depths of our fears and the truths we could not escape. The stakes loomed tall, and revelations lingered just past the horizon, waiting for their moment to strike. The ground felt unforgiving beneath my feet, each step toward Tyler pulling me deeper into a vortex of tension as we positioned ourselves for whatever twisted game awaited us. My heart raced, each beat a reminder of the fragile hope Lila had ignited within me. I fought against the gnawing fear that I might not be enough to protect her when it mattered most. "Let's make this interesting, shall we?" Tyler's voice dripped with smug confidence. "We'll do a simple wager. I'll ask questions about your past. For every question you answer truthfully, I'll back off for a week. Every lie, well, we shall see how persuasive you can be." "Why are you doing this, Tyler?" I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady. "What do you get out of trying to hurt us?" His smirk deepened. "What can I say? I thrive on chaos. It's far more entertaining than this morose little life you've carved out for yourself." As he began to pace, the weight of what was at stake turned heavy in my gut. "You're playing with fire, Tyler. You think any of this is truly fun? We're people, not pawns in your little game." "Exactly." He laughed, but it was hollow, as if he recognized the truth buried in my words yet chose to ignore it. "But enough of the drama. Let's get started." I glanced at Lila, who stood frozen, a wary shadow of her usual vibrant self. Her small frame trembled slightly as she took in the scene, the predatory glint in Tyler's eyes and the tension radiating from my body. "Hey," I said softly, crouching to meet her gaze. "Whatever happens, I need you to promise me you won't lose faith in us. We're going to get through this together." She nodded, though the worry etched across her features betrayed her bravado. "Just don't give in to him, okay?" Her words lit a spark inside me, an ember of determination that fought against Tyler's looming threat. I straightened, locking eyes with him, refusing to cower. "Go ahead. Ask your questions. But know this, there's strength in the truth, even if it hurts." "Delightful," he replied, rubbing his hands together. "What's the most shameful secret you've ever kept?" my thoughts raced back through the layers of my past, each one tinged with regret. Memories of betrayal wove through my mind, showcasing the very failures I had worked so hard to escape. I lied to my sister about why I left home, I admitted, the weight of it heavier than I anticipated. It was an echo of a rupture in our relationship that had haunted me for years. A flicker of surprise crossed Tyler's face, but he quickly masked it. Interesting approach. Next, what's the darkest thing you've ever done in your life? A shadow crept into my heart as I recalled the choices I had made, the people I had hurt in my desperate bid for freedom. I chose money over family, I confessed, my voice shuddering on the edge of vulnerability. I thought wealth could fill the void, but it only deepened it. His lips curled in satisfaction, as if he had caught me in a tangled web. Two truths fantastic. Now, perhaps a little lighter. What do you desire most? A family? A love that will last? The question struck deep, a pulse of longing illuminating the dark corners of my heart. I want to be worthy of the love I've found along this journey, to show Lila that even in the midst of brokenness, beauty can bloom. Touching, he mocked, though there was a flicker of something in his eyes that hinted at confusion. Last one, why do you think you can protect her from her father's legacy? That question slashed through the atmosphere like a gust of wind. I drew in a sharp breath, uncertainty rising like bile in my throat. There was no easy answer. How could I encapsulate the immense weight of loss, the stories that lingered like uninvited guests at a long-forgotten banquet, because she deserves more than a shadow of what he was. Because love is not something you dictate, but something you continually choose, and I intend to choose her without reservation. The silence that followed was thick, punctuated only by the thumping of my heart and the barely audible breaths escaping Lila's lips. Tyler's smirk faltered for a moment, surprise mingling with a hint of admiration. Well, color me impressed. But remember, truth can be a double-edged sword. One more misstep from you, he paused, casually glancing toward Lila, and I think you know just how quickly the game will change. In that chilling second, a sudden shout erupted from somewhere distant. My head snapped around, instincts flaring. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with panicked eyes, rushing toward us, her voice a frantic symphony slicing through the tension. You have to stop. It's happening. They're coming, panic entwined with curiosity as I turned back to Tyler, who had gone pale. What do you mean, who's coming? But the question hung suspended as the back of my mind roared, unwilling to accept the unraveling chaos around us. The edges of my reality began to blur, stark shadows emerging from the horizon, the embodiment of the very fears we thought we could outrun. Lila grabbed my arm, her grip tight and trembling as we faced this new threat together, our fragile bubble of hope shattering around us. In those moments of confusion and dread, I realized that our challenges were far from over, they were only just beginning. And in the distance, as the shouts grew closer, an unsettling realization crept into my mind. It wasn't just the stakes of our past we would have to confront, it was the reckoning of a truth we never prepared for, and the reckoning was about to crash into our lives like a wave, leaving us gasping and flailing for air in its wake. The woman's urgent plea echoed in my ears, spiraling through the chaotic fog of my thoughts. Lila's grip on my arm tightened, her wide eyes searching my face for reassurance I was struggling to provide. I squeezed her hand back, willing strength to ripple from my heart to hers, even as the chill of impending dread slunk through my bones. Tyler's face transformed, his earlier bravado dissolving like mist in sunlight. What do you mean, they're coming? Who? His composure faltered, exposing the cracks in his self-assured facade. The syndicate, the woman gasped, her breath hitching with raw fear. They've found me. They know. You have to leave now. Tyler scoffed, regaining some of his arrogance. You think I'm afraid of a bunch of overhyped thugs? I'm the master of this game. Yet the tremor in his voice betrayed him as he glanced toward the darker recesses of the alley, posture shifting from threat to retreat, but I barely heard him. Every word the woman spoke felt like shards of ice chipping at the shell of my resolve. The syndicate, the entity I thought I'd escaped. The shadows of my past suddenly bore down, a cold reminder of every wrong turn I had taken. My heart pounded, a frantic drum urging me to make a choice, to act. Can we trust her? Lila whispered, her voice shaking just enough that I wanted to wipe away the tremors with promises of safety. That I looked into the woman's eyes, and in that moment, I saw the reflection of my own fear. "We have to trust someone," I murmured, though the weight of uncertainty clawed at me. "What's your name?" "Evelyn," she breathed, glancing nervously behind her. I was a part of their operations until I learned the truth. I fled, but now they've sent people to find me. If they find you— her eyes darted between us, crystalline with unshed tears. "You will be caught in their web, too. That we can't let them take us," Lila said softly, her voice filled with a fierce clarity that pierced through the fear wrapping around us. "I won't go back to that life. No one's going back," I promised, the embers of determination stoking into a flame. "Then listen. We've got to split up. Draw their attention away from each other. Make them think you're alone," Evelyn urged, her voice taking on an urgency that hummed in the air. Tyler let out a derisive laugh. "And hope they don't realize our connection. You think they care about your little games?" "Shut up, Tyler," I snapped, the bitterness of our circumstances igniting a fire within me. His threats had begun this war, and now they threatened to engulf everything dear to me. Evelyn placed a hand on my arm, her touch grounding yet volatile. "You can't let pride lead you down a path of destruction. If you care about her," she gestured toward Lila, "you must act now." Time seemed to stutter, every heartbeat a sense of rushing inevitability as I weighed my options. "Okay, Lila, you stick with Evelyn." "I'll draw them away," I said, the words spilling out as if they were my lifeline. "No. We stay together." She shook her head, her cheeks flushed with passion and fear. "Listen." I crouched to her level, grabbing her shoulders to steady her. "No matter what happens, I will find you. Trust me. Please." With every ounce of courage I could muster, I brushed my thumb against her cheek, imprinting the moment into my very being. The softness of her skin contrasted sharply with the shadows creeping closer, a haunting reminder of how easily life could fracture. Tears brimmed beneath her lashes, but she nodded, the vulnerability in her acceptance stealing my breath. "You promise?" "I promise," I said, though I felt the weight of the world shift beneath my feet as I made the vow. "Go." Evelyn hissed, glancing toward the alley entrance just as dark figures began stirring in the distance, their silhouettes merging with the encroaching night. "Find a safe place," I instructed urgently, trying not to let the apprehension of the fight ahead seep into the air. Lila and Evelyn exchanged a brief look of understanding before darting into the shadows, slipping away with a grace fueled by desperation. "Now, what to do with you?" Tyler chuckled, a low sound that echoed with malice. The mask of fear that had briefly softened his features had now carved out a new version of him, one that relished the chaos before us. That I took a steadying breath, heart racing as I faced him. "Whatever it is you're planning, it ends now. You've messed with the wrong people." His smirk faltered for just a moment, that flicker of doubt returning. "Oh, but this game has only just begun." Before I could react, he lunged, the world exploding in motion as adrenaline surged through my veins. I dove to the side as he came at me like a bull, the clash of our bodies reverberating through the dimly lit alley. But before I could wrestle the control back, loud shouts echoed from the mouth of the alley, chaos erupting on all sides. A figure stepped into view, silhouetted against the flickering light from the street lamps. I squinted through the haze of confusion, blood roaring in my ears, and my heart dipped into the chasm of terror as recognition washed over me. It was him, the face I'd hoped I would never see again. And just like that, the crumbling walls of my past came crashing down, burying me beneath the weight of forgotten secrets and fresh betrayals. We were caught in a storm of emotions, each wave threatening to pull us under, my past colliding violently with my present, and it was my worst nightmare come back to haunt me. I end this whirlwind, one thought screamed louder than the rest: I had to protect Lila at all costs, no matter what came next. As the realization settled, I prepared for the fight ahead, not just against Tyler or the syndicate but against everything I had left to lose. The thud of my heart felt like a drumroll heralding my worst fears. David was standing there, a mirror to the past I had worked tirelessly to escape, his dark eyes reflecting something, maybe recognition, maybe a cruel delight at my unraveling. Long time no see, he said, his smirk slipping into something more sinister as he shifted his glance towards the alley's shadows. I see you've made some interesting friends. Panic surged within me, a raw tide of desperation. David was a piece of my life I thought I had severed cleanly, but now he loomed closer than ever, a specter of betrayal demanding its reckoning. I could feel the space around me constrict, pushing me toward an edge where every choice felt irrevocable. Get away from her. I shouted, the edge of my voice cracking under the weight of my fear. My mind raced, weighing the loss of Lila against the grim prospect of confronting this ghost. Would David seek retribution for my escape, or would Tyler use this opening to launch a more insidious attack? David chuckled, an unsettling sound that seemed to vibrate in the air. You still think you can protect them? You really don't get it. They came for me first. The syndicate, they're closer than you realize. And guess who's playing the role of their puppet now? He gestured dramatically, almost like he was staging a scene only he understood. Tyler nudged closer, his bravado flickering before David, the confidence crumbling into something resembling fear. Just do what you need to, David. We don't have time for games. In that case, David said ominously, let's make this interesting. Before I could think, he lunged forward, aiming for me. I reacted on instinct, ducking and rolling, adrenaline fueling my movements. My focus wasn't just on the fight, it was on Lila and Evelyn. I had to be her shield, but the walls of my mind crumbled as David's laughter echoed behind me. As I scrambled to my feet, my senses heightened. Every sound was sharp, every shadow a potential threat. The narrow confines of the alley were alive with danger. I needed a plan, I needed help. Come on. I shouted at Tyler, who seemed to have lost his nerve. But his hesitation hung in the air like a malodorous fog. We need to stop him. It's us versus them, whether you like it or not. But David's twisted smile sent a shudder through my core. You think chaining yourself to these losers will keep you safe? You're more naive than I remembered. That girl you think shall be safe out there. You're sacrificing everything for a fleeting illusion of protection. His voice had a silken edge, laced with malice, filling the alley with tension. In that moment, my resolve galvanized. Lila and Evelyn were out there, navigating peril. David was only trying to get under my skin. I feared losing them more than I feared the syndicate. Mustering a fierce breath, I retorted, they are worth every risk. I will never jettison what matters most for you, David. He stepped closer, invading my space, and for a moment, a glimmer of doubt flipped in his eyes. Maybe he remembered who I had been, pieces of a history too entangled for simple disdain. But then, he shook it off. My moment of victory extinguished. I won't let you ruin this for me again, he sneered, as if caging me with his presence. I barely registered Tyler's hand gathering at my side, as if he finally remembered he had a stake in this debacle. Suddenly, the tension shattered as hands erupted from everywhere. A group of men clad in dark clothing surged into the alley, like shadows made flesh, each movement calculated and predatory. The syndicate had found us. Spread out. One of them barked, and in that instant, chaos erupted. Instincts took over. I spun around, pushing Tyler away on instinct as fists began to fly. There was no longer a clear line between friend and foe. Panic overtook the space. I glanced behind to find a flicker of movement from the shadows where Lila and Evelyn had been hidden moments before. A brief surge of hope ignited within me, but it quickly extinguished as I caught sight of another figure, a woman running towards the entrance of the alley, eyes wild with fear. Lila. My voice screeched through the noise, a plea against the overwhelming chaos, but she was still hidden, shrouded in the shadows. Don't worry about her. Tyler shouted back, landing a punch with surprising accuracy against one of the syndicate members. Focus on these guys, but I couldn't shake the worry simmering in my gut. They're coming for her, for all of us. Suddenly, a second figure materialized, moving with practiced stealth, grappling with one of the syndicate thugs. I squinted through the haze of fists and chaos, barely able to see beyond the fray. Evelyn had re-emerged, eyes steely with determination as she took down her opponent. Follow my lead. She yelled, cutting through the noise. My heart raced for a moment, racing with pride as she maneuvered, her instincts sharp and focused. As I propelled myself instinctively toward her, my mind swirled with the consequences of our choices. In the cacophony of chaos, I could feel the ground beneath me shift. This was not merely survival, it was a desperate gamble for freedom, for love, and the chance to forge a future from the ashes of my past. Just then, I caught a glimpse of Lila again, her face pale, darting into view from the edge of the alley, eyes filled with terror. The world slowed as I locked onto her, aware of the choice looming over me. I had been right to choose trust, yet every second felt like surrendering my future into fate's capricious hands. And then, amid the melee, David's laughter echoed once more, dark and foreboding, a reminder that even as I fought to save the ones I loved, the real battle for our souls had barely begun. "Run!" I screamed at Lila, my heart breaking with the desperation of it, the overwhelming certainty that everything was teetering on the brink. Just then, a deafening sound ripped through the air. Blinding light crash-landed down the alleyway as a bright flash engulfed us, leaving uncertainty in its wake. That I stumbled, dazed, trying to regain focus while the upheaval swirled around me. My heart sank as I realized we might not all pull through this. A choice loomed ahead, a path yet to be forged through the dark ahead. And with that, I plunged deeper into the game of survival, for now, the stakes were higher than ever. The smoke from the explosion seemed to dance in the air like sinister shadows, blurring everything in front of me. My heart drummed a wild rhythm against my ribs as I regained my footing, desperately scanning the chaos for Lila. "Stay together!" I shouted, even though the words felt hollow amidst the disarray. It was everything I had promised her, yet the world felt so dangerously frayed. Amid the confusion, I caught Evelyn's fierce determination and felt a strange comfort in her presence. As we struck out together, fending off blow after blow from the syndicate goons, I found myself in a strange dance, a whirlwind of survival that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Each time I glanced toward Lila, I hoped, prayed she was safe, but the tightening coil of dread twisted in my chest. Then, somewhere within the pandemonium, I saw her, a flicker of movement that pierced through my veil of panic. Lila was hunched behind a dumpster, her eyes wide with fear, and the very image sent a spear of terror shooting through me. "Lila!" I screamed, cutting through the cacophony. "Get to Evelyn! Now! Run!" In that moment, as though the universe responded to my plea, the fighting erupted into a brief pause. My plea hung in the air, and as if guided by an invisible tether, Lila tore away from her hiding place. She sprinted toward Evelyn so fast that time seemed to slow for that brief, breathless instant. But no sooner did she reach Evelyn than several syndicate members surged toward them, sleek shadows of destruction intent on suffering Lila. I roared, moving without thinking as I sprinted past opponents, adrenaline fueling every muscle in my body. But just as I bolted, a figure lunged forward. David. His eyes shone with a mix of challenge and recognition, and before I could register that I had crossed a line, he tackled me to the ground. The impact winded me, but I shoved him off before he could claim the upper hand. "You think you can save her?" he spat, scrambling back up, ready for another strike. "You're fighting a losing battle," but I didn't have time for his taunts. Not when Lila's cries echoed like gunfire in the din. "Stay away from her!" I bellowed, a primal force surging within me. Ignoring the sharp jab of pain spreading across my shoulder, I charged again, my determination morphing into a tangible force. In that split second, as I lunged forward to tackle him once again, the world shifted. As David stumbled beneath my weight, I caught sight of Lila out of the corner of my eye. Evelyn was feverishly urging her to run, but the gang members were closing in her cruel determination, a dark thundercloud threatening to consume her. My world narrowed to a single truth: I had to protect her, no matter the cost. With a fierce scream, I launched past David, shoving him back for a second time. "Lila, run!" I yelled, the urgency clawing at my throat as I turned, desperate to understand how far I could push myself for someone who mattered most. Just then, I noticed the lingering presence of Tyler, watching as the chaos whirled around us. He was more than afraid, he was calculating, weighing his options with each movement. "You think this will end well for you?" he sneered. I pushed through the gathering shadows, my heartbeat synchronized with a newfound resolve. Everything ends well when you care enough to fight for it. I shouted back, feeling the surge of adrenaline stand in solidarity with my emotions. Then, without warning, as if fate spun the wheel of our lives, a flicker of light painted the alley. From nowhere, police sirens filled the air, a vibrant chorus of authority rushing towards the reckless abandon of our tangled lives. The syndicate gangsters hesitated, confusion flashing across their faces as the possibility of confrontation swelled in the air. Now. Lila. Evelyn. This way. I yelled, waving to them as I tore through the crowd, desperate to reach my beloved girl before the shadows swallowed us whole. In a rush of instinct and fear, Evelyn scooped up Lila, and together they darted toward the mouth of the alley at my call. The roar of a police car screeched to a halt, sirens blaring, filling the night air with an electrifying energy that lifted me up even as the chaos threatened to drag me back down to despair. With renewed resolve, I dodged between fighters, feeling alive with the urgency to reach them. And just as Lila turned to look back at me, her eyes reflecting the wild fear and hope colliding within her, something shifted in the air, the fulfillment of a promise I had made, vast and intangible, yet fiercely potent. In those last fleeting moments before the chaos descended again, our eyes met, and in those brief seconds, she granted me the courage I needed, the courage to fight not just for love but to believe in the unknown, to grasp the tangled possibility of hope despite the darkness that still breathed behind us. A force thrummed through me as I propelled myself forward, heart in my throat, chasing after the shadow of hope I had pinned my world upon. But with the sirens blaring like a heartbeat of salvation, the realization hit me like a shattering bolt of electricity: the true battle lay ahead, where forgiveness would intertwine with betrayal and love would face the ultimate test. As the police flooded into the alley, illuminating our desperate ties and detonating the dangerously twisted web we spun, hope eclipsed the darkness looming on the edges of our fractured lives. I could feel the gale of resolve swirling around us, an embrace of fierce love that transcended fear, hoping against hope to mend the scars yet unseen. It was then I understood love endures in the pain, and only through confronting the weight we carry can we puzzle together a threadbare tapestry into a resilient future. I'll always fight for you, Lila. I declared, even as the storm surged around us, knowing that this was only the beginning, a battle worth enduring. And in that moment, as I plunged into the depths of chaos, hand tightly interlocked with Lila's, I realized that fighting for love was a choice, one I would make time and again, no matter the scars. Life's beautiful mess is what dreams are built from. Each breath is a rebellion against fate, and this rebirth would define who we chose to become. Through every beat, through each unfolding moment, I would remain steadfast, lighting the way for those chasing the shadows, igniting hope when all seemed lost. So, as the winds of chaos howled, I made a silent vow: no matter what came next, we would face it together, and through the darkness, would forge a light bright enough to illuminate the path ahead. Because at the end of it all, love spoke louder than despair, and in its gentle embrace, we found our healing, molding purpose amidst the wreckage together, unbreakable.